friends and students, we are all researchers. And once we have finished some piece of research, we write papers and we send these papers for publication to good journals. We know that publication in journals is important for both appointment as assistant professor in universities or colleges, and also for promotions to the next levels, associate professor and professor. Now, quite often it happens that despite our best efforts, our paper gets rejected and we feel depressed and we don't know what to do. Now, in this small video, I am discussing with you some reasons why our paper gets rejected and what we should do once a paper has been returned back by the editor with comments or without comments, simply as a rejected paper, or with comment that I should modify the paper. Friends, there is a small difference between research papers and articles, and I wish to say something about that also. Friends, research papers are written usually by PhD students or those in the early career of their research. And these research papers are sent for presentation in conferences, workshops, seminars. Comments are received, and on the basis of those comments, experts' comments or comments from the audience, we revise papers and send them for publication to reputed journals. Now, friends, you all know that you need papers in high impact factor journals. There are all kinds of journals. Journals published from your streets to top ranking journals published by top universities of the world or professional associations. For academic jobs in reputed institutions, by reputed institutions I mean central universities, IITs, IIMs, etc. And for promotions in these prestigious institutions, we need publications in high impact factor journals. What is high impact factor journal? A common norm used by prestigious universities in India, especially IITs and IIMs, is that the candidate must have published 2 papers in Scopus index journals. There are some journals which are indexed in Scopus, and see how many documents do you have in Scopus. Once you have 2 documents in Scopus, you can think of getting a position in IITs or IIMs or other prestigious old central universities. However, if you are looking for a job in a college, in a town or in a city, in a state university or in a PG college, then you have to follow UGC norms. And if you have published papers in UGC, DAE, CSR list, this list includes journals published in all languages of India: English, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Bengali. These papers can also be considered. So first you decide where you would like to apply. If you want to apply only to the best institutions in the country or abroad, then you have to publish papers in Scopus index journals. If you are applying to postgraduate or graduate colleges in towns and cities of India or in state universities, then use the UGC, DAE, CSR list. So this presentation is based on my own experiences of all kinds. I have been a researcher and my papers have been rejected. Later on, some papers have been accepted also. I have been a reviewer for various journals, international and national, and I am also associated as an editor with certain journals. Uh, Recently, I am acting as a associate chief editor of Demography India. So I know things from various perspectives. Now, if your paper is rejected, first of all, ask yourself if you have done a good research. You cannot write a good paper without doing good research. I know that many candidates and many assistant professors in colleges and universities organize and attend conferences on this very issue, how to publish a paper. But attending these conferences will not help you much. Actually, you have to do good research. And if you have done good research, original, novel, in frontier areas of your subject, something in which the world community is interested, and even if your paper is poorly written, it is likely to be published, maybe with some modifications. Or you can seek help of English editor for revising the paper, but it will be published. If you have not done good research, you are only deceiving yourself and the community, then it is unlikely to publish a paper. Without doing a good research, you cannot write a good paper. Then attending conferences on how to write a paper would not help if you have not done good research. So keep these points in mind. Now, when it comes to getting rejected, there are 3 levels of rejection. Rejection may take place at the editorial level. All journals have editors or a committee of editors with a chief editor. And the chief editor may reject your paper just by looking at the title and the abstract of the paper. Then there is a technical level. Technical level arises when the editor finds your paper interesting and he or she sends the paper for reviewing to 2 or more experts in the field who are familiar with your area of research. And after that, some papers which have been cleared by the editorial level, some papers which are cleared at the technical level, means by the reviewers, also get rejected because of organizational reasons, because the paper is not well organized. So we will talk about these issues in this presentation. The first level of rejection means rejection at the level of the editor. This happens for several reasons. They are misleading titles, titles which do not correctly represent the paper. Second, the abstract and introduction do not clearly specify what are the objectives of the research, what are your research questions, and what is the methodology. A paper is rejected at the editorial level if it is not of much interest to the readership of the journal. That is the most important criterion. It may be published in another journal, however, if that another journal, editor of that journal thinks that for readership of their journal, this paper is okay, because all different journals have different types of readership. Obviously, those academicians who read, say, American Sociological Review do not read journals in management or journals in physics or chemistry. So all the journals have their readership, and depending on the readership of the journal, anticipated readership of the journal, editor decides whether this paper should be published or not. Also, a paper would not be published if it presents old findings or findings which have been established several times. I see that in universities, PhD topics get repeated. There are thousands of researches on the same topic, on Panchayati Raj, on women empowerment, on nutrition, on caste, on family, etc., etc. So if you write something on them, something which has already been established in literature, which is already published in so many journals, then the editors would not find them interesting. Also, sometimes the authors, the researchers, or the institutions lack the trustworthiness. For example, trustworthiness of Indian institutions and Indian scholars, this has been a matter of debate, is much less than the trustworthiness of institutions and researchers of United States. So now, obviously, if to the same journal, it may be, say, it may be a journal like American Sociological Review. An article goes from a college of some state of India, and a similar article goes from a prestigious university, from London School of Economics, then there is a chance that the paper from India would get rejected and paper from London School of Economics will be at least sent for the review. And so trustworthiness is very important. Also, some authors, some researchers have been blacklisted for plagiarism or other reasons, for cooking up of data, etc., etc. And once the editors know that the authors have these histories, then the paper will not be accepted. Also, remember that in the top journals, rejection rate is very high. In top journals, rejection rate is almost 80%. That means if 100 papers are sent for publication to these journals, only 20% get accepted with or without modification, and 80% are just rejected. And as against this, the rejection rate in regional journals may be very low. It may be as low as 30%. Even there, some papers get rejected. I have been associated with some Hindi journals in social science subjects which are published in Hindi. And I know that even in those journals, some papers have been rejected. I have myself rejected papers. Some top journals ask you to pay for review or publication. This is an important point. And they have a high prestige. You can publish papers in them. And the money can be paid by you from your contingency grant, from research projects, or from your pocket, or your institute may pay them. But there are some predatory journals you should avoid. There are journals who will publish all kinds of articles in all subjects just for some money. They are predatory journals. You should avoid, because then you lose practice, you lose prestige. I know how an associate professor, a middle level, rather senior level person, who has been associate professor for more than 12 years, did not get professorship in the same institute, because everybody knows that he has, although number of publications is very large, but he had published papers in paid journals. Try to avoid publishing in paid journals. They can publish your papers, but they will bring only disrepute to you. They will not serve the purpose. They will not be counted towards your appointment or promotions if the selections are fair. Then there is second level of rejection. If the editor is interested in publishing your paper, the paper is sent for technical review to experts, and the experts may reject them if there are inconsistencies between different parts of the paper. What are these parts? Between objectives, conceptual framework, methodology, and inferences. Or the paper lacks a systematic review. This is a new issue. Recently, some 3 or 4 years ago, a paper of one of my PhD students in a management department of IIT Kanpur got the rejection from a good journal, not because the topic was uninteresting, not because the analysis was not good, not because the language was poor, but because the review was not done systematically. These days, experts ask, what was your methodology of reviewing literature? Your literature must be unbiased and must represent all kinds of literature, books, articles, journals, reports, data sets available on that topic, and that can be done only through a systematic review. Sometime we will talk about systematic review. Or your methodology is not appropriate, or the sample is local, or sample size is small, or inappropriate statistical techniques have been used. If I write a paper based on say relationship between fertility and income, or income and nutrition, and I collect data from a small ward of a small city in UP and send it for publication to top journals in Europe and America, then it's unlikely to be published. But if my sample size is large, if I write a paper based on NFHA data, Human Development Survey data, NSSO data, or data from Registrar General, or I myself, through sponsored research, conduct a large-scale study, then my paper is more likely to be accepted. So sample size is an issue. Also, if there are errors in statistical analysis, imagine that sum of your p-value is shown to be more than 1 or less than 0. Obviously, the reviewers will know that you have done some errors in the analysis of data, because p-value beyond 0 to 1 is not possible. Or you have done factor analysis, but the naming of the factors is not proper, or it appears from the names of your factors that factor analysis was not an appropriate technique to apply to your kind of data set. Or sometimes journals may ask for supporting documents. They may ask you to produce the original data in Excel sheet or SPSS or other packages sheets. Sometimes they would like to check whether the figures and tables that we have made can be reproduced from your data that you send them. So remember that these days things are becoming very strict, and you must preserve your data for at least 5 years, and at least for the time you want to publish your paper. The recommendations of the ethical board. All your universities or all your institutions, research institutions have ethical board. All the research organizations have either their own research review board, or there are some ethical review boards. I have been a member of one such organization, Mamta, in Delhi. Whenever research proposals are submitted to international or national organizations in Delhi, then these organizations send them to Mamta or some such board where ethical review is possible. And for ethical review board, it's not a simple matter. The members of ethical review board must clear some exam, or they must be identified. They must belong to some category from which members of ethical review board are identified. Experts, legal experts, medical doctor, depending on what kind of research is this. Whenever you do research on human subjects, approval of a duly formed ethical review board is important, and the journals will not publish. I have also seen this case that one of my students could not publish a paper in a journal because at that time when this research was done, our institute did not have an ethical review board. But these days, many journals are very strict about recommendations of ethical review boards, or that the informed consent was not taken. If you are working on human subjects, then their informed consent, their agreement to provide you the data, become part of the experiment, or respond to your survey questions is important. If they are illiterate people, you can take their verbal consent transfer. You can use audio tapes to take their verbal consent. But consent is important. And this is what the ethical review board also looks at. Further, reviewers would look at whether conclusions are based on the statistical findings and analysis. If there is divergence between statistical findings and the conclusions of the paper may be rejected. Then there is a significant issue of plagiarism, which may be suspected. Sometimes, if plagiarism is suspected, then also your paper may be rejected. And obviously, if there is plagiarism, and it's very easy to identify plagiarism these days, so the paper is not going to be accepted. Even self-plagiarism, you cannot publish your paper 2 times or 3 times. You cannot even reproduce a significant part of your papers published earlier in new papers. You may, however, refer to your old writing. Give reference. If you do not want to write details about your sample design in the next paper, then you say that for details on sample design, refer to my paper published in that journal. So in the reference part, you can include your paper. Therefore, before sending your paper for a high-impact journal, run a plagiarism checker. Look at the similarity index. If similarity index is beyond a threshold level, then you have to modify the paper. See, on the basis of the list of references that you give to the journal, which go to reviewers finally, reviewers may see those papers. These days, papers published in good journals are all available on net to reviewers in prestigious universities, and they have a look. Quite often they have a look at those papers which have been given in the reference, and they can easily identify if there is a plagiarism. Some journals publish papers which have strong policy implications, and in selecting which journal you should send your paper to, you should also keep in mind whether this journal publishes papers of theoretical importance or policy importance. Most of the journals today publish papers of policy importance, and there are very few journals which publish papers of theoretical importance. Anyway, as a PhD student or in the earlier part of your academic career, you are not likely to write papers to be published in theoretical journals. Then there is one more level of rejection. The paper is acceptable to the editor because editor think that it's interesting, new, and it will be of interest to readership of the journal. Technical review has also cleared your paper, but you have crossed the standard length. Most journals specify word limits. And a few words less or more does not matter. Less does not matter, but you should normally not exceed the word limits specified by the journal. You must condense your paper before. If you think that your paper is very large and it's crossing word limit, then you must condense the paper and then only send it for publication. Or the reviewers may ask you to condense the paper or to reduce the size of the paper so that you remain within the word limits specified by the journal. Sometimes papers get rejected because there are serious problems with the language. And I'm telling you from my own experience, I have also rejected papers. I have rejected papers in Hindi, not to talk of papers in English. I have rejected papers for Hindi journals for bad language. If there are lots of grammatical mistakes or errors due to lack of clarity, wrong word choice, they lack in parsimony, something which could be said in one page has been said in 2 or 3 pages, tenses, style of writing, precision, organization, spellings. Spellings are very important. It leaves a very poor impression if you write paper and that paper contains spelling errors. Then papers may be asked to be modified for poor references. As far as possible, try to give the latest references of good journals, good books, and good reports. Old articles, old books, and old unimportant reports or insignificant journal. You want to publish your paper in a journal of American Management Association, and you give references of journals which are very, very local, Hindi or Tamil or Bengali, or published locally. They are of local importance. Do you think that your paper will be considered for publication? Obviously not. And then unacceptable formatting. All the journals have their own format. How should paper be organized? Title, subtitle, tables, figures, diagrams, and mathematical symbols, etc., etc. Read in what format the journal wants the paper to be written and use that format. Friends, this process, when you have written a paper and editor is happy to publish your paper, but reviewers are not happy, there is a technical problem. So your paper comes back to you for comment with the comments of the reviewers. Reviewers comment, recommendations to editors are sent, and then these recommendations come to you. Sometimes there are minor modifications, a few lines here and there, or some clarifications which you can do. Sometimes there are major revisions that you have to revise a major part of your paper, or you have to rerun the analysis, or you have to produce some more charts and graphs, or you have to do some more statistical analysis, or you have to produce some more documents on the narratives if you have written a paper based on qualitative analysis. Then if Your paper may be considered for publication when you have taken care of them. You need to take care of them, then your paper and send them back, the paper will be published. You may again be asked to make it. So this process, sometimes this happens 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, that you revise the paper, send it for the consideration of publication. It comes back to you again and again and again, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and you are made to make changes. The editors will often specify the places. Also, a very important point you must remember, that editors will specify the places using track change or other modes where corrections are needed. Do not change the paper at any other place after getting the comments of the reviewers. Because when you send your revised paper, reviewers would not be interested in reading the whole paper again. Reviewers would be interested in reading only that part on which some comment has been made, that make this change of language or change of statistic or explain the sample design. If the reviewer says explain the sample design, then reviewer would not look at your findings or conclusion or other things, only this part. So change the sample description part, not the other parts. Do not touch the other part on which no comment has been made. Friends, I have seen that at your age, when you are a PhD student or you are assistant professor, and when supervisors make any comment on your thesis, when journals send you letters of rejection, or journals ask you to make modification in your paper, you get frustrated, you get depressed. Listen to them. Read the reviewers' comments seriously. They suggest how you can modify your paper to become publishable in their journal. Revise the paper and wait. Sometimes it takes 2 to 3 years to publish a paper in a top journal. And there is a good news for you, that for jobs, when you apply for jobs, the letter of acceptance of publication of your paper is as good as publication. So if you show, if you have letters of acceptance from 2 journals, you have written 2 papers and 2 journals have accepted them, you can apply to IITs and IIMs and central universities. Acceptance is as good as publication of the paper. And if rejected, then don't be depressed. Send it to another appropriate journal in the field. Friends, I would like to say that in place of getting depressed, convert rejection into learning. Learn from rejection. Learn from reviewers' comments. Rejection should teach you about writing. A paper rejected by one journal may be accepted by another journal. So get the comments, revise your paper, send to another journal. If the journal to which you originally sent it is not interested in publication, you gain academically, and your paper also gains. You gain academically from the reviewers' comments. You always gain. So when your papers are getting rejected, you are acquiring new knowledge. You are academically growing. It's a process of growth. Take it to be a process of maturity and growth. Do not get depressed. Sometimes the editors make you modify the paper because there is some worth in it. Yes, the positive side of getting comments of the reviewers is that in the opinion of the editor, there is some worth in the paper. Editor wants to publish it. But there are technical reasons why reviewers think This also happened to several students of mine. That the editor said, your paper is very interesting, we would like to publish it. And here are reviewers' comments. Look at the comments, modify your paper and send it back. And my student did it. They modified the paper and sent it back for the publication. The editor was not happy, or the reviewers were not happy. The paper came back for modifications again. Sometimes students get frustrated and they will tell me, sir, I want to send this paper to some other journal. And I say, no, the editor find your paper interesting. Only thing that reviewers want some explanation or some modification. Modify your paper. What they are saying, your quality of your paper is improving. If you listen to what your reviewers are saying, you are improving the quality of your paper. And once a paper is published in a journal, it becomes your permanent property. And maybe 5 years, 10 years, 30 years from now, also people will read your paper. Your paper must be good. So use the reviewer's comments to publish in the same journal. Do not send it to another. Only when a journal says, yes, we cannot publish your paper. Some other journal may find it more interesting. This is the standard language. Then you send it to another journal. I give you my own example that in my initial days, I was asked to modify a paper. There is a journal in the field of population review. 7 times. And in the final acceptance letter, the editor said that now this time means when he sent his comment 7th time, he was now he was expecting me to kill him and not revise the paper further. But I revised it. I kept on revising my paper and I published my paper in that journal. And not only I got the credit for publishing an article in that journal, I also learned how to write a paper for international journals. There were small mistakes I was making. For example, if you are writing a paper for international journal, your units of measurements of different kinds should not be local. In that paper, I had used bighas, and I must use acres, hectares. I must specify land size in hectares. I must prepare tables according to their format. Like that, small things you have to do. If you are writing that per capita income in this group is rupees this, it is better to write in, you can write rupee, but at least in the bracket you write US dollars, or better to write US dollar, so that everybody, if your paper is published in an international journal, everybody understands what is the average income of that group you are referring to. So don't get disheartened, revise your paper unless somebody says that your paper stands rejected. Keep on modifying it according to reviewers' comments, and you will publish the paper and you will learn. Main thing is that you will learn. There is a positive side of getting rejected, and that is that you academically grow. Also remember that publication in journals in specific areas, like Journal of Biosocial Science or Indian Journal of Gender Relations or Social Studies of Science, is easier than publishing in journals such as American Journal of Sociology or American Sociological Review, which are open to all areas of social science, all areas of sociology, and to which the most eminent sociologists of the world are contributing. So choose a good journal which publishes articles in your specific area of research. If you are working in the field of marketing, identify good journals in the field of marketing. Do not send your paper to good journals in management as such. If you are working on the problem related to values, identify which are good journals which are publishing articles in the field of values. Do not send your papers to journals devoted to all issues of philosophy or all issues of epistemology or ontology. Choose your area. There are so many journals which are publishing articles in your specific area. It is easier to publish articles there. So read the reviewers' comments seriously. They suggest how you can modify your paper to become publishable. Revise the paper. Wait for jobs. Acceptance is as good as publication. I'm repeating this slide because this is important to be told to students and young scholars. They do not get depressed. Thank you. So, friends, this is what I wanted to say. I have said that all of us face rejection from good journals. Still, we must publish papers in good journals. Of course, there are many students who are not aspiring to become faculty in good universities. They just want a job in a degree college. So for them, UGC, CSR, that list, UGC list of journals in different languages is okay. But adhere to that list at least. Do not publish in journals which are not part of UGC list. Okay, and if your paper is uninteresting to the readership, the editor may do desk review and reject it. But in most cases, you get your papers back with minor or major modifications, and sometimes it may take a long time. The review and response, R&R, that takes long time, 5 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. You may be asked to revise the paper 4 or 5 times. Good, you revise the paper. You learn, your paper improves in quality. So don't get disheartened. But there are a few tips that you identify good journals in your area of research, not in the discipline in which you are working. If I am working in experimental economics, it is better to identify journals which publish papers in experimental economics. I should not try to send my papers to those international journals in economics which publish theoretical papers. So identify journals in your field, send them your papers, get comments, modify, and keep on modifying until they say no. If they ever say no, then also you modify your paper, use the reviewer's comment, and then only send to other journals in the same area. I hope my video was useful to you. Thank you very much. We will keep on meeting. Thank you.